address for this session, which will be delivered by the Executive Chairman, African Energy Chamber. Please, a round of applause for Mr. NG Ayuk.
Good afternoon. I think that coffee didn't wake you guys up. Good afternoon. I have never been a diplomat or a politician, so I don't know protocol. I will just say I stand by all previous protocols. Ministers, it is an honor to have me here. When I was invited to this, I first thought, well, I don't know what to expect, but of course the Nigerian food is good, so I will go to Nigeria. And the food has been great. And it's really great when we start talking about green Africa and a green future for our continent. And next session we're going to have a big discussion about natural gas and where we go. You see now, start talking about green, a bunch of people are leaving. I'll stop talking about green. But yes, there is. Fact of the matter is that our continent stands at a crossroad. Climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, green Africa, and repowering Africa. We could not have seen that being here this morning at the start of this event with a power outage. That is what everyday Africans go through. But I want you to stop for a minute. 600 million Africans every night go to bed without any electricity. 900 million without any access to clean cooking. Most of them women. Most of them women. A refrigerator in one of the developing countries telling us to get rid of fossil fuels uses more electricity than those 600 million that have no access to electricity in Africa. Those are staggering numbers. Yes, I come from the fossil fuels industry, which a lot of people kind of think is a bad thing. I don't think fossil fuels are bad thing. I think it's very good, and Africa needs right now more fossil fuels, more hydrocarbon, but we got to explore them in a greener, better, and environmentally friendly fashion. And we should never, ever apologize for having oil and gas. We should never, ever apologize for producing gas and using gas to drive Africa. It is something that we should be unapologetic of. If you start in Nigeria and all these ministers around Africa, if you buy into this narrative that we have to abandon our natural resources in the ground because somebody tells you that, I think you are selling out on the next generation of Africans, and you need to be careful. I was very lucky last year to be at COP26. I don't know how I got in, but they invited me. But then after we got out of COP26, one of the first things we found out with all the pledges to phase down fossil fuels and phase down coal or phase out coal. But then you get into hydrocarbons and they say we got to leave the oil in the ground. I wasn't happy about it. I thought they were wrong. But we go in there, then we move on, that was November, then we move on 2 months later in January. All of a sudden, gas became green. So somebody sits somewhere, decides that gas is green, and they change the taxonomy, and then we have to go with that. We've always believed gas is green because it's the cleanest form of fossil fuels that you can really use to drive up industrialization, create jobs, create opportunities, and lift people up. This is the industry that served so much to improve human civilization. And how dare you try to take that away from Africans when it's time for Africans to really leverage themselves and be part of the next future. And you cannot do that without gas. But in January, after saying we should abandon all oil and gas, Norway gave us 52 oil and gas licenses. Africans stayed home, we refused to do anything. In February, Germany announced they're going to build 2 new LNG terminals. They are going to they are going to drill the North Sea. The United Kingdom said they're going to open for the first time in 30 years new coal-fired plants. Germany is importing more coal right now than before. This is more coal than the entire Africa combined. They really went to Botswana and started importing coal in Botswana. The United States opened all federal lands for drilling. And I could go on and on and on and on. And here you are in Africa. You get caught up into all this new wave and you say, we are going to live in the ground. How do you explain when that's what has happened in the last 4 months. How do you explain to Mozambique that could move from zero to the third largest producers of natural gas in the world if it gets its production? How do you tell that child in Namibia that they've been exploring for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, never found oil and gas, and over the last 2 months they've had about 13 billion barrels of petroleum being discovered in Namibia, living in the ground? How do you tell a country like Sierra Leone, like the Gambia, like Chad, that have been exploring and they have great potential, and you say, living in the ground with this abject poverty because somebody use your resources? There is no, we need to be talking about a just energy transition, not just a green transition. But then that's our challenge. We're going to build an African narrative because we've always been good at playing defense. We always let someone decide. I mean, somebody goes to bed and decides that gas is green. It's called global warming. It's not called Africa warming. So there has to be a global solution to it. Because if you want to talk about a global solution, and with gas, we have to first ask ourselves that pertinent question. What does the global carbon atlas have in Africa? Outside South Africa, you see about 0.5% greenhouse gas emission in the entire continent. And you're telling me that 0.5%, if you can ask South Africa, you're at 2.73, and that's what they say. I think we did less. So it's important that we have these discussions. We've got to have some honest conversations. They need to decarbonize. We need to industrialize. That is very, very important. If you want to really fix this problem, the person who's created the problem the most should be solving it, should be investing the most, and everything. And this is kind of when we really, and I like the mineral partner because it was so good. I just had a conversation with the minister, talk about beneficiation, and talk about how we're going to use those resources right here. We messed up with petroleum, we ship everything, but we shouldn't do that mistake with gas. We need to start driving that right here at home. That it has to come from us. As we're talking about creating an enabling environment. I know some of you call me capitalist, but I like low taxes. I don't like government getting involved in everything. Government needs to create a policy and get out of the way and let business drive this. And when business drives it, it creates more opportunity for everyday people. And you transfer technology, you transfer skills so our people can work on it. But we have to be very careful as we take on this pledge. Yes, we're going to go to COP27. And yes, I know some of us are going to go to COP27 and they're going to say, where's the dollar line, let's sign. This year, I'll tell you, we would make it very clear to everybody, we are not going to go to COP27 in Cairo, basically saying that we're giving up our natural resources. That should not happen, because the first thing we need to be doing, as we discuss gas, they were the climate pledges 12 years ago. They said they will give all developing countries 100 billion climate adaptation funds. Well, that check never came down. So I think the first discussion we need to be having about all of this is that we go to COP27, we have discussion and say the first thing is pay what you owe first before we start talking about anything. And the second part of it is that if you want to continue this stuff of leave everything, leave gas in the ground, don't develop anything, okay, let's talk about it. 127 billion proven reserves across Africa. I think there's more. Look at the gas. Let's calculate, and then you pay up. And then we can start having a discussion about giving the ground. I won't get you guys in trouble, Minister. I promise I won't say anything that will embarrass you, but I give you good news. One of the positive signs we're seeing right now is how we're going to finance natural gas development across the continent. I think what African Bank and the African Petroleum Producers Organization did 2 weeks ago in Rwanda is a step in the right direction. Africans have to learn how to put skin in the game. We need to start financing our own stuff. There's $2 trillion of capital running around Africa. We can be able to find 30, 40, $50 million to do gas to power plants and do those solar projects. We should be able to pay for our own transition at our own timetable rather than wait for people to do it for us. If we don't do that, we are going to continue begging for others to do for us what we can do for ourselves. And I think as we drive this, and I'm so honored to join my fellow panelists to have this discussion, I hope we can find ideas how we can drive Africa forward, how we can drive this country forward, because don't forget, this country is still dealing with 70 million people in Nigeria alone are still victims of energy poverty. That's why we at the Chamber believe that we need to make energy poverty history. That should be our rallying cry. 2030 is not the time to stop, because how are you going to drive that Tesla if you don't have no electricity? It's just common sense. I would end with common sense. Thank you so much for having me, and I really look forward to having you.